So social hierarchy is that pyramid that you see in the top corner of this slide. It's the rankings within society, it's how we view people, and it's impacted and determined by wealth, race, gender, sexuality, and a lot of other things. The wealth gap is an unequal distribution of wealth, and it's not just your income or how much money you have, it's your houses, your cars, estate, and inheritance. And a really big issue at this during this time period was that the rich were getting inheritance when they were born, which really wasn't fair. And so it basically means that someone in the higher class would be born and they would have $1,000, but someone in the lower class might be born and they'd have to live paycheck by paycheck, whatever their parents are making. The connection between the two is really prominent, actually. The wealth gap basically relies on the social hierarchy because depending on how high you are in the social hierarchy, it kind of depends, or it kind of tells where you lie in the wealth gap, like which end you're lying on.
This is a map, or I mean, a chart about the U.S. unemployment rate during the 1930s to the 1945s. And in the 1930s, more and more men became unemployed, which led to poverty and families struggling to live.
So social hierarchies in the 1920s to 1930s, so this is before the Great Depression and during. So at this time period, social class was becoming a really big deal, and social class and social hierarchy have kind of always been a big deal to humans because of our instinct to always be better than others, and we do that in things like sports and stuff like that. But during this time period, the ideas of higher, middle, and lower class were really becoming a big deal. In this time period, the social hierarchy was in descending order: white men, white women, men, black women. And it's not just these two races, it's any minority or any race. But basically, the lighter your skin, the higher you were to the top of the social hierarchy. So the controversial figure that we chose was, I'm sorry if I don't say this name right, Hoy Pierce Long Jr. He was the governor of Louisiana, and he spoke out about the social hierarchy and the wealth gap. And he came up with this idea to create a share the wealth program, which would help to eliminate wealth gap.
The wealth gap during the Great Depression. The working class became unemployed and lived in poverty, while the wealthy remained in the upper class because many people had land or buildings all debt free and many had cash. However, some wealthy people lost more than half their wealth in the stock market crash, but they were still very wealthy.
So, kind of going off of what Blaze just said, the recession affected everyone, but not everyone had that financial cushion that the upper class had. So, although everyone did feel this impact, it didn't affect the upper class as much as the middle and lower class. So, some things that this impacted were unemployment. The middle and lower class, lots of them were let go or had really low pay, which caused a lot of workers to go on strike. Because education services, rich people put money back into their schools and the schools that their kids are attending. So it makes it really hard for public schools and just schools for lower class children to have a good education. And with no education, it's hard to find a job or at least a good paying job. Respect in society at this time was a really big deal. If you had money, it was kind of like known that you should be flaunting it around and showing everyone that you have it just to be better. And being lower in the social hierarchy, it was harder to gain that respect. And health was also a really big deal because in the lower class, they not everyone can afford the cost of health services, so they'd either barely go, or when they would go, they'd go to really low quality places.
Connection to today. Social hierarchy today is mostly categorized by household income, and many factors from the 1920s remain the same: race, gender, etc. Social hierarchy will always impact humans as we always try to be the best. And on the right is a picture of, never mind. It's okay.
Yeah,
You
you
can
can.
go on. You can go.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So connection to Hawaii. Poverty in Hawaii is a really big deal, and this has to do with social hierarchy because Hawaiians are not at the top of the social hierarchy, even in Hawaii. And lots of people here are not the richest, but lots of people from the continent and other countries come here and they move, they build, and they start living here, and then it causes our land value to increase. And since lots of Hawaiians can't afford that, they fall into poverty or become homeless. And having a higher place in power is a really big issue in Hawaii. As you can see now, lots of our governors and senators are Asian and white. Even though there are some Hawaiians, there's not many. But when they are in power, it's really hard to determine what they're going to do. And a good example of this are the Kealohas. Right now, they are having one of the biggest corruption scandals in history. They took money from their family and the community, and that alone just puts a really bad image on Hawaiians. And since even though we're not all like this, when one does come into power, it'll be really hard for people to trust them. So our author's choice was this little song thing. I think it's from Of Mice and Men. I think part of it was in the Edpuzzle, but I'm not completely sure. And these protests, and they kind of both go together because that song thing is asking his friend if he could give him some money, and everyone in the back is kind of protesting for money. And yeah, yes.
Very well done. Okay, so as you can see, like these presentations run a little bit long because there's so much information that is asked, right? And so the leeway is quite tremendous. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. I'm going to allow for a little bit longer presentations because I made a mistake in estimating that these presentations are only going to take like around 3 minutes plus or minus 30 seconds either way. And so as you can see, you guys will learn a lot from each presentation. Where you're going to lose points is if you are not prepared to go. So as you can see, or as you just saw, Alicia and Blaze were very organized in taking turns and going in the presentation. So very little time was wasted. Okay. Oh, I wanted to just in the chat, I wanted to create, just call out this correction. So something didn't look right while I was creating this presentation. And so I went back and I checked apostrophe, no apostrophe, right? For the 1920s and 30s. So I would like you guys to delete your apostrophes from the 1920s and 30s because that's how you pluralize the years. Who knew? Anybody looked it up? Makes sense, right? I don't know. I don't know why I learn something new every day. Okay, so anyway, thank you guys for your presentations. That was really well done. Okay, who's next?
Okay, here. It's Tia.
Oh, hi, Tia.
Our social injustice is the Dust Bowl. And Jake. So the background information is that the Dust Bowl was on April 14th, 1935, and that's when many, it was caused because many new immigrants moved to the Great Plains in the 1920s to start farms. These farmers became greedy because they farmed and plowed over the natural grasses, which gave the soil no rest and like time to heal. So they just kept working the soil. So this dirt became dry and flew into the air while the winds caught up. The locals left the Great Plains and they suffered to find new jobs and shelters in California. The social injustice is that the farmers only cared about the money from the crops, which caused many people to flee to California in search for jobs and homes in the Great Depression. Oh, okay.
So this is a map chart. It shows the Dust Bowl states. It shows which states took severe damage from the dust storms and what other areas took damage. So, yeah.
So the people, oh, here's a newspaper talking about the people getting pneumonia in the Dust Bowl. So the people who left the Great Plains, there was about 2.5 million, but the people who left Oklahoma were called the Okies, and most of them settled in California, but they dealt with the discrimination and menial labor. They lived in basically they're homeless, but they lived in shanty towns and tents near irrigation ditches. But the people who did stay got pneumonia and probably died because they didn't have that well of hospitals and like healthcare. And they also could not eat or drink water because they were filled with dust and dirt. Poor people probably couldn't survive because they couldn't afford masks.
Okay, so the picture on the right, that is J.R. Davison, and he is a Dust Bowl survivor. He recalls his experience. He grew up at Oklahoma, Texhoma, and his view in the Great Depression, it was good. But if you judge it today, it wasn't a good living, but he thought of it as an existence. He knew all the consequences and he accepted what he received. Also, his neighborhood was very dry and poor, and he didn't get that much education in school.
So here's the artwork that we found about the Dust Bowl and a poem as well. Yeah.
So the connection to today is people had to wear masks to protect themselves from the dust and the storms. And that relates to today. We have to wear masks to protect ourselves from COVID-19. So yeah, and people lost their jobs due to that cause.
Yes, because somebody I'm not blaming the guy, but basically, he we all faced his mistake, I guess. So it's like his mistake caused us all to not deserve, but to deal with his consequences. And we have to wear masks to keep living just like the people in the Dust Bowl. Yeah. So the connection to Hawaii is that they didn't take proper care of their land, which forced them to deal with the storms and the dust everywhere, which, yeah, they couldn't farm anymore. So we must learn from their mistakes so we can malamar aina and take care so we can make food and keep our island healthy. Thank you.
Wonderful. So can you guys do me a big favor and write the word diaspora? Yeah. I believe we've talked about it before. Okay, diaspora, where people are displaced from their homeland due to basically three factors. One is because they're for economic reasons, there's no way to earn money, and so they have to move, right? So that would be like the Dust Bowl. But in combining the issue of not being able to make money during the Dust Bowl is also the environmental issue, right? So if you guys know about the rising sea level, right, people are going to be displaced by the millions. Okay, so the other factor of diaspora is war, right? The mass exodus of people due to war or unsafe living conditions. So the Dust Bowl hinges on this major displacement of people due to the social injustice of unequal living conditions and working opportunities to make money, right? So well done, you guys. Thank you guys for your guys' presentation. Love it. Not love this whole sad part about this, but very well done. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Go ahead and set yourselves up and then we can get started.
Percy, you want me to share the screen or you can share on?
You can, I guess.
Okay, so this is our social injustice project, and our topic was education during the Great Depression. Okay, sorry. So the Great Depression was the worst economic downfall of the industrialized world, and the Great Depression lasted from 1929 to 1940. The 1933 was the lowest point. So that's like when everybody was like struggling the most. 15 million people or Americans were unemployed, and half of the country's banks failed. There was no jobs, which caused no money, no income, and then kids couldn't go to school, and so yeah, and then the government didn't have money to fund the schools, so schools shut down. Okay, and then so to the right is the unemployment rate by race. So as you can see, whites had the least, blacks had the most, and Hispanics had like mid. If parents can't pay for their kids to go to school, then kids can't learn. And the minorities had a higher unemployment rate, which means kids of minority couldn't go to school, and it gets harder to get a job when you get older and you don't have education. And if you have no job, then it's a harder life to live.
So back during the Great Depression, going to school was pretty rough. So basically, the farmlands became less valuable. So all like the people living in rural areas who depended on the money that came from the farms, they basically had almost nothing. And schools were also not being supported in certain districts in like rural areas like southern states, which meant that the schools also couldn't pay their teachers. So half the time, kids would just quit school and work to be able to earn money and support their family financially. And some like a fun fact is that the teachers that were teaching the kids were barely older than the students because so many people were out of work. The school children that went there, basically higher education was almost like a dream back then. It wasn't really a goal like college. And the families didn't really afford like pencils, paper, even like shoes to be able to go to school. And like I said earlier, in order for the kids to financially support their families, they would have to quit jobs and work on the farm or find jobs. And 1/3 of a million children were out of school during the Great Depression. So the transportation for certain children, well, there was none at all really. People that lived in mountains or like Malca areas, they could not go to school because of the fact that there was no transportation, there was no cars, and also the kids that did go to school, the schools could not provide like lunch for them, like how we do in this time. Schools couldn't provide lunch for them, so kids would go to school and come back home hungry. And yeah, schools were just in a grave state during the Great Depression. It really was not good.
Okay, so the connection to today is schools. Okay, well, schools didn't
schools closed over there because there was no money and there's barely students. Men stopped working. Men stopped going to school to work in the olden days because they need to support their families. So they just didn't go to school. And then because of the Great Depression, there was no job. So like people went to school, but only the men and women that could afford to go to school, which is usually white people. Now the pandemic has stopped some jobs and some kids from going back to school. In the beginning, school was kind of closed down because not everybody knew how to get technology to run so that everybody could go to class. So we are lucky for that, for having technology now, because we're able to, some people can do jobs at home, and we're able to go to school still and still learn and have resources that we need. And we're just, being at Kamehameha schools, we're fortunate for all of that kind of stuff. And then connection to Hawaii. Hawaiian language was banned in 1896, and in the 1970s, only in the 1970s was Hawaiian back in schools. During the Great Depression, we had schools, but just not in our native tongue. So like, although all the people in like on the continent didn't have schools because they couldn't afford it, we had our own school system, and we were able to go to school, just not in the language that we knew, I guess. My great grandparents, okay, this is my connection to this. My great grandparents went to school, but they couldn't speak Hawaiian, so they got lickings at school for speaking Hawaiian because that's all they knew. And then when my papa was going to school, my papa would speak Hawaiian at home, but not at school. And then when my mom guys grew up, they didn't learn Hawaiian. And so when my uncles and aunties got older, they all went to college and they learned Hawaiian. And so now there's like and then me and my cousins went to Hawaiian immersion. So all of us are starting to bring it back. So my papa always cries every time he hears us talk and stuff. So that was just a connection to me and my and Hawaii. So yeah.
Mahalo for that personal connection. How many of you guys can speak Hawaiian? How many? Yeah, La'akea, kind of. Yeah, I mean, amazing, right? And there are reasons why your grandparents were cut off from the language, right? Do you know why?
Because we got overthrown. They never because they couldn't speak Hawaiian, didn't know what we're saying. And yeah, I don't know. Really.
Right, the language, right? The history that exists in the newspapers, right? If you cut off the history, then people are unaware of what happened before and how successful and how brilliant Hawaiians were in the past, right? How brilliant Hawaiians were in the past. And now kids like Apole, like La'akea, like the rest of you who are learning Hawaiian again, that's a major movement to reclaim what is yours. And even for me, when I hear Ohana speak Hawaiian, like, you know, in KTA, because that's where I go, right? I mean, I'm just like all jealous, like, I just want to be their friends. Like, I think it's just wonderful. I know, not that bad, but I mean, like, I just want to like hug strangers when I hear them speak Hawaiian. I just like, right on, you guys. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Okay, next group, go ahead and set up. Mahalo for that. Very, very informative and well done. Thank you.
I'll share the screen, please. Okay. So, okay. So our social injustice is healthcare and the inequalities, and it's by me and Zeke. So what is healthcare? So healthcare is the service of people in the medical field assisting to one's needs. Our main focus is like the unequal treatment based on wealth or where they come from. Healthcare is paid for by medical, which we'll talk about, and it can also be paid out of pocket. So here's a timeline. It starts from 1929 and it goes all the way to 2008. So I started with a group of like English teachers and they signed up for healthcare. They didn't really think it would be like such a big deal until people had to go to like war and stuff and then they needed it. So eventually it became a more like bigger thing. That's when the Blue Cross and Blue Shield came involved. And then in the 1965, Medicare and Medicaid offers healthcare for the lower income people. Medicaid is for like the people who are like over 65. And it became too expensive, the drugs or medicine, in better words, for them because it's expensive. So they needed something to like help them. So President George Bush wanted to do something about the price because it was getting too much. So they want their main goal was to like lower down the price, and then in November, I think it was November, yeah, 2008 in November, Barack Obama makes healthcare his top priority. That's why he had his whole like business or campaign about it. And then, so here is a map or chart. It shows like the prices and how much people pay per year for medical. And medical is very expensive, even though you don't go to the doctor, because if you don't pay for medical, then when you do go to the doctor, it's really expensive. That's why that's why some people can't afford it. So some people don't pay medical, but when they do go to the doctor, it's very expensive. Okay, this video I watched, it was really sad. Like it talked about like in many countries, like during different periods of time, how people are treated differently because of like how much money they had or like what they could afford or like where they were from. So an interesting fact that kind of not interesting, but it shocked me is because children in the lowest 20th percent of income are more likely to die before their 5th birthday. And then 85% of premature deaths come from the low income or countries like Syria or other places like that. But one main message that I got from it is that change can happen. So we just have to be more involved and make it out to other people. The primary source I got is an article. It talked about the epidemic of influenza. And it was really interesting because it talked about this guy's personal experience of how he had to pay and how expensive it was. So this website actually is really good. You could click on any topic and any like subject and it will take you to like an article from that time period. But the one I focused on was the healthcare during the epidemic and the financial issues.
Hi, it's my turn. Okay, let's wing it. Let's go. The figure that we chose for like this time period was Justin Ford Kimball. He went to college at Baylor, and what he did was, since people were unable to afford healthcare during the time, he offered a alternative. It was a monthly fee instead, and in exchange you get bill payments, and it included access to hospitals. And now it's known today as the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. All right, so the connection to today, with all these different insurance policies, healthcare is way more affordable. More people can now afford it. And the Blue Cross Blue Shield still exists to this day, and it's still helping people. Oh, okay. So the connection to Hawaii, we have this thing in Hawaii called HMSA. It's like a part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. Many locals, like such as my family, and I know a couple other people, use HMSA and use the services provided by them. So That's the connection to Hawaii.
Okay, very good. Are we going to do a virtual clap? You guys good? Thank you. So, you know, you guys who have the luxury of having insurance because your parents get it from, you know, their jobs or whatever. Whew, lucky you guys, right? And you guys, if you guys continue to go to college up to a certain point, I think it's like 26 or so years old, then you can continue to get covered under your parents' umbrella coverage. It's really an interesting thing. You guys should really talk to your parents about that. Because what happens if you don't go to college full time and then you have to scramble to get insurance, right? There's a lot of people, there's an issue of this. And I'm glad you guys actually researched it, at least mention it, because a lot of people are actually underinsured, it's called. And that causes people to get trapped in this, I have these huge medical bills and now I cannot move forward in life. You guys gotta take care of your bodies like you wouldn't believe. Like that thing, your body will cost you a lot of money if you decide to abuse it. Right, Krisha? You want to talk about something you want to add or?
In general, my mom, when she got like hit in the head by a horse, her like just flight alone to Oahu was $85,000, but medical like covered it, so we didn't have to pay the 85,000. But if we did, oh my god.
Right. And so I want you guys to also pay attention to the current issues with the pandemic. Who gets the vaccine? Why? What's the order? Right? These are some of these injustices will surface because people either have health coverage, they have a place, they have means to get to the site to get the vaccine. It is going to be a social inequality in itself, the whole vaccine thing. Pay attention to that. It's going to be very interesting. Okay. And the pandemic itself created a number of issues of inequality because of healthcare. When people don't have healthcare, right, especially the brown and black communities, what happens? They end up dying at higher rates, right? So it's really sad, actually. Okay, who's next, guys? Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So our topic was the migrant and seasonal workers. And the seasonal farm workers had to move around often. I mean, they didn't move around, they had temporary jobs. So they would stay in one place, but their job wasn't like a stable job. So after World War I, the crops market price went down, so they had to work harder to get the same amount of money. But to work harder, they needed to pay more to buy things to help them work. So they went into debt. And at this time, the unemployment rate was at 30%. So all of the farmers wanted to move to California because it was supposed to be the ideal place for farmers and farm work. So they took Highway 66, which is the route that went straight from the Dust Bowl to an area south of the Central Valley of California. And here's a map of where the Dust Bowl was. It was between Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. And a bunch of the farmers went from there straight to California. And the people who left the Dust Bowl were called Okies. And although they weren't all from Oklahoma, which is where they got their name from, they were just all like categorized into Okies because the people in California, they didn't really care where they were from. They all just knew that they were homeless and poor and they worked in the farms. So the Okies were oppressed when they got to California. It wasn't what they thought it would be. They thought, oh, we were gonna farm, make money, have good weather. But they were actually discriminated against. And the locals in California just thought of them as dirty people who weren't smart. And they were not smart because the kids didn't go to school and they were discriminated against. They couldn't go to school. They were struggling to make money, so they had to work with their families. They couldn't drink clean water because they didn't have any, and they got sick. So the children wouldn't go to school and they would just work to make money.
Okay, so like when the migrants, the Okies, when they weren't like working or farming, they would sing songs about, I guess, how hard they worked, disappointment, and how much they wanted to go back home. And after the 1930s, they fought in World War II. Okay, so I decided that instead of like talking about how they had to migrate and stuff, I would talk about the oppression. So I think Miss Kabatu a couple presentations ago said like every time like a new group of people would come to Hawaii to work on the plantations, they would be like oppressed. And so I thought like, well, yeah, they kind of were discriminated against, and the owners of the plantations didn't really care about their workers, so they were treated badly, and yeah, stuff like that. Connection to today, I thought maybe I should talk about the LGBTQ plus community because like for the past couple of years, I see like around social media, sometimes they get like hate and stuff from all kinds of people and people who are like against it. And until like, I guess, people like Joey Graceffa, Bretman Rock, and James Charles, like they were really not as popular as before, but until like they started going on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, people started getting more comfortable with it and started to like come out, I guess. And this we're excited.
You guys, mahalo for this presentation. Not bad. You guys came in at like 4:25. Very good. Okay. What do I want to say about this? Very interesting time period as far as the going back to, you know, the waves of immigrants. Very interesting time period, right? Even just for myself, like, right? I see that the Japanese at one point, right, came in and established themselves, right? Then the next group came in, right, established themselves, right? The next group came and established themselves, right? And so, and each new group caught cracks, right? Oh, why are you here, right? You guys are not, you guys are lazy, you guys are this, whatever, you guys just taking, right? Very interesting to see which, you know, which minorities really have this lasting, I guess, weight on their shoulders, right? Okay, let me see. Yeah, good. You guys, yes, I love it. You guys give each other props. I love it. You guys are so positive with each other. I love this. It's like one big happy family. But I don't want to romanticize that because it's like, you know, families are not perfect. But I mean, our class is pretty good here. I like you guys cheering each other on. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Anybody next? Oh, where did she go? Did she leave already? Alicia leave already? Okay, let's like give her energy. And where's Evil? Give her energy, right? Hey, yes, take it from us. Kick some butt.
Good luck.
Whoa, yeah, good luck. Okay, bye. Not the rest of you guys. We have to continue. Okay. Who's next? Okay. This is the last one? No, I really enjoy these presentations, you guys. Oh, should just give more presentations then. Okay, ready?
Kaylee, are you gonna share your slides?
You want me to?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll get them. It's fine. It's fine. Alicia already left. We don't need to hurry up. It's fine. Wait. I apologize. Press present. Ooh. Get it, I guess. It's sharing.
Okay, so this is our social injustice project during the 1920s and 1930s. Our topic was physical and mental disabilities.
There we go. So basically, physical and mental disabilities back then were treated like serious, not like how we treat them today. They were treated as something that had to be cured in order to like be accepted by everybody. So things like electroshock became very popular, and I think we all know now that that's kind of not the best solution, but I mean, go.
Okay, so during this time, a lot of people were greatly impacted by it, and they usually ended up resorting to things like suicide, alcohol, and smoking to escape the pressure of having to try and provide to their family and themselves. So in between 1928 and 1932, the suicide rate rose more than 30%, and 3 times as many people were admitted to state mental hospitals compared to normal.
Physical disabilities back then were caused because there was a huge difference in like the safety regulations in America from here and back then. So people who were in the working class had more of these disabilities. And on top of that, they would make, America loves money, so we would make money off of people with like physical disabilities, which is terrible, but it happened.
Okay, so mentally disabled were placed and removed from their families. I think, what was the word? Spira, something. So these facilities were self-sufficient. So the labor was put in by the patients themselves rather than the people who worked there. And it wasn't really based on what that individual needed. It was just kind of based on what everyone else needed as a whole. Society thought of disabled people as like the feeble-minded, and it was really unusual if you were disabled mentally or physically to find a partner, to get married, and if you had the opportunity to produce a child, then you'd be making more unattractive people because appearance started getting really popular during this time. So
This is a very long quote, and for your guys' reference, I will not read the entire of it.
So basically, it's just this guy talking about how there was people really wanted there to be like a rule where people who are disabled can't reproduce because they don't want more of them now, do they? And so it's talking about how many people are affected and what they call them and the sterilization laws.
Okay, so the connection to today. So in most cases, your mental health will definitely impact your physical health in your body. So say you're really in a depressed state, your body's more likely to be feeling heavy on you and you're less motivated to get up and do things in your daily life. So today mental disorders are more common than physical disorders. And in the 1900s, drastic measures and treatments were taken to fix the socially inadequate. Like we mentioned earlier, the electroshock and other things.
You know, this man's just living it up. Let's say it's on a Hawaiian beach, you know? Let's say it came up when I searched up Hawaii disabled. So one thing about Hawaii compared to the rest of America is that like we're kind of disconnected from a lot of the history. So we didn't have to experience things like the electroshock therapy and stuff like that. And that's yeah. So true. Here's how we're excited.
Yeah, they're in alphabetical order.
All right, so connections to Hawaii with mental disabilities or physical disabilities could easily been connected to something like Hansen's disease, right? The true story of Kulu'i Ko'olau. That was a huge marker of social injustice in itself, right? Because they separated people from their families and just took them. Okay, so anyway, mahalo, you guys. We are going to be kind of taking a brain break now. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do is we're going to, are you guys done with adding to your reflection and analysis part? Are you guys good with that? Okay, if you are, go ahead and submit that and then let's move on. Mahalo, you guys, for your presentations. I really appreciate you guys doing this. Okay, now let's go to the reflection. We powered that. They need to fix the layout of Canvas because when there's a discussion, in order to hit the next button, you got to go all the way down unless somebody has a different way they do that. Do you guys have to scroll all the way down when you guys like irritating? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you and then I'm going to send you off for like 3 minutes to go find these things in your house. If you are not at home, then maybe you can look in your backpack or something. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to play a quick game called Gimme Gimme. All right, so this week you're going to be reading the first 3 chapters of Mice and Men, chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to also be taking notes in your notebooks. Make sure that those notes include drawings and captions. Drawings and captions. Whoever's Alicia's friend, make sure you text her to remind her about the drawings and captions. So gimme, gimme. I want you guys to take 3 minutes. I want you to find something in your house that represents loyalty. Another item that symbolizes or reflects your hopes and dreams. And then something that doesn't really work well as it should. Okay, you guys ready? Go. 3 minutes. You got your stuff? Yeah, it's must have. Where's my other thing? Okay, so if you have your stuff, you can start by just do like a, lay it on the table, take a picture and upload it to the discussion board. Okay. Camila, what did you get, Camila? Ooh, is that a dream catcher? Oh, just when I thought you couldn't get any cooler. That's really cool. Zeke's like, I have a dream catcher.
Miss Kabutu.
Yo.
Eva's laptop died, so that's why she's not on top of the Zoom anymore. She just came to tell me.
What is she doing? She's locked up.
Her laptop died.
Oh.
So she told me, she came here to tell me.
I'm such a tutu. I'm like, what? She's locked outside.
Hey, you should have heard, because she had to tell me 4 times before I heard her.
Oh man. Oh, you saw that guy who had like mental health problems. He never have a shirt on by the mall.
Yeah.
What
yesterday.
Sad. Yeah. All sunburned.
My mom almost banged him because she was taking my brother to the bus stop.
Yeah.
And he was in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And then like it was super dark yesterday. So all the cars was flashing their lights so that my mom could see him walking. Oh my gosh. And then when we went to the bus, he was standing by the post holding on top and like waving to everybody.
Yeah. Hold up, pitiful. Okay, if you guys are at home, so this is what I got for my 3 things. I have this sharpener that really doesn't work, a knife sharpener. So it really doesn't work that well. If I had thought about it more, I would have kept my junk can opener, because that thing is super annoying. That thing did not work. I had to squeeze it to death, and then it wouldn't open the cans. And if you guys know anything about living in Hawaii, if you don't have a can opener, that's why hard. Okay. So this is something that doesn't work very well. This represents loyalty, because my glasses is like, I know what I see, right? I trust, okay? And I can always remain true because I can see, right? I understand what's going on. My hopes and dreams is, I picked my my teacher badge, okay? And my teacher badge means a lot to me because it took a lot to get to Kamehameha schools, just like how maybe some of you guys, it took a lot to get here. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to retire from Kamehameha schools in like a bazillion years, but that's okay. I know that I can also give other people the opportunity to fulfill their hopes and dreams. So that's what I have. Okay, so what you want to do is lay it out on the table, take a picture of it, and then upload it right now to the discussion board. Okay, so that's what you're going to do with that. If you guys don't have your things right now, then that's okay. But I want you guys to upload first. Okay, everybody clear on that? Can? Okay. Next thing, what I want you to do, okay, is just look at the directions, because I want to make this extremely clear so that we can leave. So you guys can start reading. Each item will represent one chapter. You got to figure out which one is related to which chapter. Does that make sense? Okay. So you'll say, like, for me, like, my glasses represents loyalty. It's the connection I made was from this page, this direct quote, and then explain the connection. Okay, so this is supposed to be kind of a fun, but well thought out task, because you had to do scavenger hunt. But then now, how do they connect, right? Why are we doing this? Well, guess what? There are lots of different resources, audiobooks, helping guides to Of Mice and Men because it is one of the books that every kid should read, and then so that you guys can understand how people lived before and how maybe we're living the same way to some extent. Okay, so what I'm asking of you guys is to dive deep into your analysis, really explain. Okay, after you're done reading and making those connections, you're going to go back to your pictures, and then you see the 3 dots. I'm going to show you. See the 3 dots right here, right? The 3 dots will allow you to go back and edit. So that's where you're going to add your connections to. Okay, so you're going to follow up by revising your posts. Anybody have any questions on that? Anybody?
Miss, can I go, Miss? They're like leaving me.
The what? Where are you guys going?
Going to the test.
Oh, yes. Okay. Anyway, don't forget to do your IXL. I'll see you guys later. Email if you have questions. Apole, you get questions.
No. I was wiping the kind. It's raining, so I was wiping the screen.
Anybody? Kai, you good? Kaylee, you good? Okay. Trinity, good? Good job, Trinity, on your presentation. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, you too. You too, what's your name? Jake. You got a nice voice to present. You should be like one of those like announcer people, voiceover, professional voiceovers. Zeke, you good? You thinking? You in deep thought over there. Okay, all right, go ahead. Start reading, upload those pictures. Bye.
Wait, Miss Kabatu. Miss Kabatu. Miss Kabatu.
Oh, did you hear what to do?
Yeah, I did. I might be like, hold on. How do you get back to that the gimme thing? Because I can't find it.
Oh, it's at the top of your discussion. So it's the last module of this week. It says Of Mice and Men chapters.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah, so that's the gimme. Get them? So don't forget to upload your pictures. Yeah, just take a picture of all 3 things on like one table.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.